Hey everyone, JT Viper here with a series of new videos, nothing more than primers really, about some of the different groups within the Manosphere and other tangentially related internet sectors. Now I've divided this series into individual videos intended to be as brief as reasonably possible, in the hopes of providing informative but easy to digest first steps on the path to understanding the different groups that I'll be covering. So, without further ado, let's get on with the first video, shall we? Now, before we get into the division of the groups themselves, it will probably help to know about the Manosphere, the primary territory of cyberspace that we'll be studying throughout the series. Now, typically, I don't defer to Wikipedia for my definitions, and this definition cites some concerning sources. However, I find it to be fairly accurate and, at the very least, usable for the purposes of this video. Having said that, the Wikipedia definition at the time of this video's recording reads as follows. The Manosphere, a name given to a loose and informal network of blogs, forums, and websites with internet commentators focusing on issues relating to men and masculinity, as a male counterpart to feminism or in opposition to it. Many of these are men's spaces, their content is varied, and includes men going their own way, MGTOW, men's rights issues, fathers' rights movement activists, and male victims of abuse, self-improvement, bodybuilding, anti-feminism, seduction community documentary for pickup artists. Now, I don't like the sentence structure of the definition as it feels extremely jumbled after the "and male victims of abuse" portion, but for the most part it's on point. It covers the necessary factors and sects, if you will, within the Manosphere. I would contend, however, that the Manosphere is not a counterpart to feminism. Feminism is an ideology. The Manosphere is a loose categorization of internet content. The term counterpart infers that it performs a function that corresponds to that of another person or thing in another place. A more apt use of the term would be to refer to feminism and the men's rights movement as counterparts, as they share some very similar traits. Now, I said I was going to try and keep this brief. So, let's carry on, and I will address any and all questions down in the comment section. Or, of course, with another more in-depth video if there's demand for one. So, the first group I'll be defining in this video, and the label that seems to be the most commonly misused, will be the men's rights movement, the MRM, and men's rights activists, MRAs. I must add a quick caveat here though, and that is to say that participation in one group within the Manosphere does not in and of itself involve an individual in any other group as defined in this video. That is not to say that someone cannot be part of two or more groups simultaneously, but that participation in one does not automatically mean participation in another. It is extremely important to understand, before seeking to examine these groups, that this caveat has to be considered. One does not always equal another. So simply put, the men's rights movement is a social group and movement that focuses on advocacy for the rights and concerns of men and boys where they are not upheld to the same standards as the rights of women and girls. Now, let's look at the different focuses of the men's rights movement. The primary topics addressed by the MRM and MRAs are as follows. Male bodily autonomy, which covers circumcision, also referred to as male genital mutilation or MGM. Paternal rights, such as the right of a biological father to be notified of a pregnancy, expanding the rights of fathers in the case of their child's adoption, so on and so forth. Fathers' rights, which has a similar profile to paternal rights, but which focuses primarily on issues in cases of child custody and discriminatory treatment in custody proceedings. Legal rights, focusing on discrimination against men by the judicial system in regards to the longer sentence length and disproportionate judgment in favor of the death penalty for the same crimes when compared to women, as well as police and court treatment of male victims of domestic violence. men's mental health and suicide prevention efforts aimed at addressing the disproportionate rates of male suicide and gender-biased approaches to mental health counseling and support. And finally, reproductive rights covering male birth control options and the topic of paternal surrender. Now, of course, there are more topics covered under the umbrella of men's rights, but those listed above are the most prominent. The main takeaway from this is that the MRM and MRAs advocate for the rights of men where they lag behind the rights of women. Simple as I can put it. Now, we've covered the definition and topics of focus for the men's rights movement, but if we're going to ask ourselves if an individual or group fits these outlines, it may help to have a few examples of men's rights organizations and leaders. Prominent examples of men's rights activists include individuals and groups such as Paul Elam of the American organization A Voice for Men, Mike Buchanan of British-based Justice for Men and Boys, and James Brown, president of the Canadian Association for Equality. Of course, there are many more men's rights organizations around the globe and plenty of regional offices for organizations like the Canadian Association for Equality, but I promise to keep these videos somewhat brief, so I'll leave a few pertinent links in the description. Alright, that should cover the definition and focuses of the men's rights movement, as well as examples of prominent organizations and individuals associated with the MRM. If you have any questions dealing with more in-depth concerns regarding the men's rights movement or what makes a person an MRA, feel free to ask them in the comments section down below. I hope this video and the others in the playlist will help people to better understand the differences between the most prominent and most commonly misunderstood or mislabeled groups contained within the Manosphere. To learn more about these groups, please continue with the next video in the Managing the Manosphere playlist, Pickup Artists and the Seduction Community. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a major thank you to my Patreon patrons who help me keep my channel running, enabling me to continue producing content. You guys are amazing.